Patriarchy and sexism are now very popular words used by women to school men who have refused to do better or who feel the conversation is either irrelevant or out to take charge. On today's episode of Why Women Roundtable Conversations powered by Knorr, I'll be speaking to some incredible women for International Women's Day. We'll be talking about how these issues of patriarchy and sexism not only affects the woman, but everyone. I'm Tomike Adeoye, your host, and I have my extraordinary women on this roundtable. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
Welcome, Chioma.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ifeoma.
Ijoma.
You're like, no, girl, you didn't just get me. You know what's cramming for these names in my head? Welcome, Rolake.
Hi.
I'm excited to have you here. And this is Power Conversations Over Soup. So we're ready for the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But something is missing, and we're going to rectify that. That's the soup.
Oh,
And so, remember growing up, we used to sing, Mommy in the kitchen cooking rice, Daddy in the parlor watching ball. Right here today is ladies on the table doing the talk, and then Uncle
the guys
in
in
the
the
kitchen.
kitchen.
So we have Chef Emeka
Great,
bringing us our starter,
change.
our soup.
Yeah.
Hi, Chef Emeka.
Hi.
Emeka,
How are you? Yes. It feels so good having this.
Awesome. So it's going to be telling us quickly what we have here.
Okay.
I was going to tell you, but let the chef do it.
So we're having carrot soup made with naturally tasty ingredients. So some carrots. I made a stock using some Knorr cubes, and then some onions, garlic, ginger, just the usual things you'll see in your kitchen pantry.
Nice.
And then we've just pureed that down with some cream and with some salt and pepper. So that's basically what it is. Some good old hearty carrot soup. Enjoy.
Thank you,
Thank
Chef.
you.
Thank you,
You're
Chef.
welcome.
Now this is where the work begins, eating and talking, right?
Yes.
This is where my job becomes difficult. I'm trying to act all we're going to dive right into this conversation. I'm also thinking on second hand, it would be bad to actually taste this
Taste
before
it,
we
yeah.
start talking. So feel free to dive right into it.
Taste that carrot.
Yes, it does.
Nice.
2 spoons, everybody. Everything is 2 spoons. I was counting it for you. And just so diving straight into the conversation. You see, back to the song I sang earlier. Mommy in the kitchen cooking rice, Daddy in the parlor watching ball, and I think Junior in the whatever doing something else.
Yeah.
But it is Mommy in the kitchen. So I mean, growing up, gender roles have always been normalized. It started from the home front, and I feel like this is the foundation of this conversation we're having here today. Do you think these issues can be resolved? Because it became a norm. If you sang that song and you didn't say anything wrong with that song, oh, why is it not Junior in the kitchen and Mommy in the parlor playing games? Why is it the other way around? But what are your thoughts, Maureen? I know it's actually not with you. That's why I'm so earlier, Maureen said, you're going to be going this way, right? I said, no, I'm starting this way, so I'm calling you out.
Oh dear, I should have kept quiet then. Yeah, you're so right, really, because we grew up watching all these adverts, always placing women in the kitchen. And there's still quite a lot of adverts today that haven't reversed that. You still find women in the kitchen, daddy coming back from work, just throwing his things all around the house, and then he goes sits on the comfortable couch while the mother is busy, trying to get everybody, sorted out. Then she comes to the dining table, serves the food, and we grew up in a house like that too, where we do all the house chores and the boys were allowed to go out and play, so much so that sometimes they even get us to pick their plates
And watch them.
to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So, but for me, growing up, I got to a stage where I felt something was wrong with that, and I started rebelling against it. So anytime my mom would tell me to pick the plates up after the boys have finished eating, I'll tell her, no, the person who used the plate should go wash his plates in the kitchen. I grew up in a house where the boys will eat a certain type of food. My mother will go into the kitchen and prepare something else for them. But we, the girls, when we say, we don't want to eat this type of food, the kind of eye they give you, like, how dare you to talk? Yes, how dare you say that? So really, the home front has a lot to do. There's a huge role that mothers have to play, in terms of how they raise the male children and the female children. Everyone should be given, a level playing field, I saw a message once on Twitter where somebody asked a question saying, who gets to cook the food in the house? And someone came and answered him saying, the one who is hungry.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, and I'm like, wow, this is so apt. You know, if everybody, I don't see cooking shouldn't be a gender-based role for females. No, everybody should learn how to cook. Everybody should know how to cook. Everyone should know how to clean after themselves. Everyone should know how to wash their plates. It shouldn't be a female thing. You don't get to leave your house, you know, and leave dirt behind you, and then you go out and expect that your sisters will do the cleanup, you know, after you know. So I should think it's about time that we realize that the way we raise our female children has an adverse effect on what we also grow to become in the future, because the boys are allowed to grow and dream big while we are just, we're told that, okay, the kitchen is where we belong to. And it's time to shatter that.
Yeah.
Yes.
How can these issues be resolved?
Well, like you were saying, I think it also just starts in the home. You know, I grew up with a very big family where, you know, some of the things you said were just became impractical. You know, my mother grew up very traditional, you know, the women take care of the home. But, you know, me being one of 8 and having that dynamic, it's like you need help or you'd be overrun with everything. So one of the things that I think she tried to do, sometimes my dad would help out and try to reinforce some of her actions, but what she tried to do is make sure that we each have different tasks and different things. And a funny thing happened within that process. It showed my father, wait, you know, my daughters, you know, are multifaceted. You know, we also have different interests. So you can't pigeonhole us and say, you know, these are the only things that we can do, which is housework and things like that. So we actually changed his perspective over time and evolved. And I want to say, now that I'm adult, I have my own family, it was a great moment to hear from him when he said, you know what? You know, I love you, you're my daughter. And there's basically nothing that you can't do. You know, and that was the first time in my life I heard such a thing, because I've always looked at him as like, this guy, very patriarchal, but he was like, you know, don't let someone tell you different. And he said, like, hey, when you were younger, I had some different thoughts and feelings about it, but now I see, you know, I see what you all have become, and why wouldn't I be proud of that and support that?
So like they say, charity begins at home. So it all starts from home.
Absolutely.
Do we think raising these issues would actually crush the systems of patriarchy and sexism that we have in the society currently?
Well, I mean, look, it's a really difficult one because, you know, we can assume and sit here and assume, you know, things have changed and we've come a long way. But I've always said, and I've always believed, that representation and modeling is important. Because if you think about it, for young children, these things are ingrained in their minds. And these are some of the things that lead to what we call subconscious biases, which is why when a child who's grown up in that sort of background then sees maybe a woman in a certain type of role, there's that sort of double glance, like, oh, interesting. But that starts from somewhere. So I think one of the ways we can help to really push the envelope on this issue is through representation and modeling, and actually intentionally and deliberately supporting women in certain roles and in certain functions beyond just the home. I'll give you a very funny example. Many, many years ago, I was attending a party and there was a friend there. And as soon as her mother-in-law walked into the party, she got up and she went to serve her husband the food. But she said she was doing it just to sort of, you know, give a certain face to the family. But between themselves, they know how they manage. So I think there's a lot of pressure in society, but I do think the foundation starts in the home, because in the future, in the workplace, this is how subconscious bias starts. And even us women sometimes can be our own worst enemies when it comes to putting ourselves forward or breaking the norms where gender roles are concerned.
True. So this month is our month, and the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Choose to
Challenge.
So how does this speak to you? I mean, what are we challenging this season?
Okay. I think I was going to say something to add to what she said. You were very right about the modeling, and I think you can't function above what you know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask that. add that, most of us were a function of our reality, what you saw growing up.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
when you come out and then you hear certain conversations, you're wondering, like, who are these people? Where are you coming from? And I think one of the things that has happened for some of us who grew up from those kind of typical family settings is education in the school setting. I think so. While we're also talking about modeling, and one of the active ways would also be to make sure that look inward. You sang a song when we started. That was from school.
Yeah.
So we have to find out what's wrong with our curriculum. There was something I saw. There was a book I saw. I don't know. It trended one time. There was this book. I think we already went in school, but then we started seeing it with
different
insight this time because now
we've been exposed.
we've been
Yes,
exposed.
exactly.
And then we're like, really, we read this, mother doing this, father
doing
the father
good
is the
work.
best.
Yes.
Like they were defining
Yes.
who is a father.
And who
It's
is
not
a
like
mother.
the roles.
Yeah.
Who is a father? A father is the person who provides for the family. So I think we should also look inwards and try to find out how we can be able to structure our classes, our educational system to be more inclusive.
Just before we dive straight into the conversation further, I can see that we are very passionate about this conversation, which I love. It's the only reason why nobody is holding their spoon. So we're going to go on a quick break. Feel free to take 2 more spoons. I will be right back.
Thank you. Now we can indulge.
The soup is nice.
Really nice.
Very rich.
Really nice.
I've been looking at you from across the way, and I think about you almost every day. Now I think that I must have a crush on you. I hope that you feel it too. Paradise is waiting for, so take my hand. You and me in la la land.
It's the natural ingredients and rich flavor of Knorr that brings people together.
Welcome back. You're still watching Why Women Roundtable Conversation powered by Knorr, and I still have my incredible ladies here. Roundtable is empty. So we need to rectify that once again. Yes. Are we ready?
Yes.
Chef Emeka. I think we should give Chef Emeka a round.
There you go.
You see, men, that's how we need you to clap for us when we come out from the kitchen, please.
There you go. Let me move that for you.
Wow.
Very cute.
Okay.
So I think the first time we started with the soup. So
Yes.
sometimes we continue a soup with a salad. And salads don't have to be boring. So I made a chicken salad.
Okay.
I know it doesn't look like one, but we should make it exciting sometimes. So we have a chicken salad. We have some chicken that's flavored with Knorr.
Okay.
And then we have some green beans in some dressing, some lettuce, and spring onions, all naturally tasty.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Chef Emeka would not put me in trouble.
No.
But it's been several years of us fighting for gender equality. Would you say there's been progress so far? It's been years. I mean, the fact that we're even sitting down to have conversations like this, I believe there's progress in its own form, because some people thought it irrelevant back in the days, but now people see the need for these conversations. So you personally, would you say any progress has been made so far? Don't worry, eat. Was that with you?
I think there was something you mentioned earlier. You spoke about your dad calling you, as when you were grown and telling you stuff. I think that's one way to measure progress. I know that for us, I wouldn't measure progress with the generation that exists right now. That's still progress. But then if we look at our parents and then check their mindsets, I see a lot of change in my family. Amongst my immediate family too, my friends and all my circle. And so I can say personally, in the way that we're having conversations, in the changes that we're seeing in our workplaces, in our educational system, the representation, yes, there is some progress. More could be done, but more, because
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree that more could be done. But I also think that, they say the proof is in the pudding. So when you say, how do we measure the progress? One of the things that I feel we need to look at is, let's even look at women in leadership positions.
Exactly.
I'm a corporate executive, so I work in the corporate world. And every time a woman attains a certain position, we originally saw with our own Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala World Trade, we're all applauding.
Yes.
But progress for me will really be when we don't even need to applaud that anymore. When it's no longer the first, and we're hearing, oh, this is the next of a long line of women who have attained this position. And I think another way we can really measure that progress is to what degree as women we're amplifying each other's voices, right? So that we give other women opportunities as we go up the ladder. And I say this particularly as a woman in the corporate world. Every time I hear that, you're the first, you're bringing boundaries. I'm always sort of checking myself, right? Okay, how have you empowered somebody else? But we also have to look at the numbers. And the final thing I will say on this progress is, when we're putting forward the case for gender equality and equity, we actually have to state what the business or economic rationale is. It's not just that we want to see women advance for the sake of it, but actually it makes a real tangible difference, even from a financial perspective. So when women are giving money, for instance, they're more likely to spend it on their dependents, which then triggers economic growth, it fuels development and other forms of wealth creation. So I think we also just need to start defining the business case and the economic case for why we're pushing women and we're challenging those gender norms.
True.
I mean, you being in the corporate world, we have several conversations about the issue of pay gap, whereby men are paid higher than women, and this issue has been lingering for so long. Some will say, oh no, it doesn't exist. Or some would even tell you that the man needs more money because he's the breadwinner, is the one doing this, trying to justify these cases. But what do you think about that?
Well, there's a saying that you don't get paid as much as you worth, but as much as you negotiate. I think the other thing is, when Sheryl Sandberg wrote Leaning, she was really writing it for women, not for society. She was telling us, you need to lean in. Don't just sit there. If you don't have your place at the table, create your own table.
Exactly.
So one of the things I'm really passionate about is empowering women in effective communication and negotiating. How do you go and ask for what you deserve, right? How do you ask for what you rightly deserve? How do you showcase your qualifications and tie your value to that monetary benefit? So I think it's really about also women playing our own part to ensure that we're not left out of those conversations.
We must be heard. Enough of the tokenism. We're not all about that. Where there's a Ministry of Women Affairs, for example, but there's no Ministry of Men Affairs. What does that mean? There is a youth leader, women leader, but there's no men leader in most of these political parties. And those are the ways they constantly okay, let's just give them something, and then we take it and we think it's not enough. Those are things that we shouldn't even accept in the first place, because how do you define what the Ministry of Women Affairs is all about? And we don't have that of the men. So are we trying to say that we have solved every of men's problems, but women's problems are yet to be solved? Reason why there is a Ministry of Women Affairs. So I think they give us these things so we can just take them and keep quiet and be happy. But we have to constantly keep challenging. We have to constantly keep pressing on and showing that, yes, if they don't say here we are, we will say, we would announce ourselves and say we are here to also be heard.
I've been looking at you from across the way, and I think about you almost every day. Now I think that I must have a crush on you. I hope that you feel it too. There are dozens waiting for, so take my hand. You and me in la la land.
It's the natural ingredients and rich flavor of Knorr that brings people together.
Speaking of this issue of patriarchy and the fact that the system still exists, many people say it's because it favors boys. I mean, you have a system where there are 5 girls and there's 1 boy. Even if that boy is the last born, that boy is almost like the chairman of the house, like the head of the family, because he is a boy. Just you feel like that child is superior, which is why at times, people have so many you can see people with 6 girls and they're still trying to have kids. And you're like, what's happening? I don't have a male yet. My husband's family. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Hair to carry me.
Yes.
It's deep. But the funny thing is, there was a time in some ancient African cultures, matriarchy was actually the prominent thing, right? Where women were seen as powerful. I think patriarchy exists and it does affect boys negatively, because patriarchic is associated with certain things, being macho, dominating. It's not a anytime a man
showing
wants to be
emotions,
strong. How does this affect the men as they grow up emotionally? What sort of husbands are you creating for your girls that you say are not important? You know, so I think it exists, and it's not a great thing because it's often used negatively. But I also think that there are distinct differences between men and women.
Yes.
Which are strengths, and both genders working together can achieve a lot. But I just think that whole patriarchy thing has done a lot of damage to young boys.
You mentioned something. I really like that it's a conversation, so we can you know talk based on what we've all said. So you mentioned something about women having. You believe women have distinct roles and
distinct features, not features. There's some qualities that we have.
Thank you. That's the word, not roles. Yes. So we have distinct features, and I actually believe that I like to just, while I am woke, I like to also look at things from the perspective of what happens every day. And as a doctor, there's a scientific backup for motherhood. I like to say that because no matter how woke everybody becomes, children are still very drawn to their mothers. That breast milk, everything, bonding. So no matter how much we say, oh, men, they have to be part of the grooming and all that, which is very important. Please
make sure
that's in cast in stone. There's still going to be that, not preference, but that inclination for mothers. Oh, my mom said I shouldn't do this. I know. So I think when we are saying, some people might be thinking that the patriarchy does not affect men negatively, I think it does affect men negatively because it's a full circle. So you're concentrating on training your boys in a family. There's money to only send one person to school. Or two people, you choose the boys, and then you leave the girl. The girl's going to grow up. She's going to marry because that's what you want her to do. Okay? She's going to marry, and she'll be inclined. Her sons will be inclined to her. So what's she teaching them?
Same thing.
It's full circle.
It just goes on.
So it just goes on. So their father is out there making money, or even still present, but then they're always sitting at their mother's feet. What's she teaching them? So if you don't impact on the girl child, it's going to still come back and affect the boy child. So that's what I think.
It's been really insightful, and you're still watching the Why Women Roundtable Conversation powered by Knorr. And ladies, on a final note, I mean, if we decide to dive right into so many other topics, we would not leave here today. And I absolutely love that we're passionate about the conversation. But you see, we've all agreed here on this roundtable today that men need to be involved in this conversation to break the norms that we are trying to break. So to the men watching this, what would you be saying to them on a final note, in a nutshell? How can they make this journey more wholesome for we women? Oh, you have a lot to say. I think you speak last, so we'll start with Ori.
My call is just for them to be more involved, pay attention, to those things sometimes that we're not even able to communicate due to several years of being oppressed, by this patriarchy thing, So sometimes just pay attention, just listen to what we're trying to say, the message we're trying to pass across.
For me, I would just, my word to the men is don't shortchange yourself. And here's where I'm coming from. I see a lot of men who struggle because they know what to do right. They want to do it right. And then they go out there and people are like, you do that? And they're like, I kind of do that. You don't want to be bold about what you're doing. And an example, just, antenatal classes and courses. You see people who come in and then I'm like, I was talking to a group of people and I'm like, oh, so this man came in with the wife. I was like, a man came in with the wife. Why is he coming to antenatal clinic now with the wife? Like, why? I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't he sit down there?
Exactly.
And he's like, it was only women that sit there. And so...
But she didn't have the baby by herself.
Exactly. I was going to say that. Someone made it. Is it not his child?
I often hear a lot of people say, oh, as a man in a position of power, I don't see gender. Whoever is qualified will get it. But I find the problem when people say they're either colorblind or racially blind or gender, because they miss opportunities to actually make a difference. So I would want to say to the men is that be deliberate and actually look out for the women. I've had some male mentors in my life, not just women. So I think those in a position of influence are actually one of the biggest agents of change. And there's still a lot of men in a position of influence. That's just reality. So that would be my message.
Thank you.
I would say that we're all significant. I think some men feel that when we're pushing for this gender equity, they feel like, are you trying to replace us, or do you feel like you're better than me? And it's not about that. It's not a competition. It's basically showing that we're all of value. Women are of value, and men are of value. And so we should all, be given the space, to fulfill our hopes, our dreams and aspirations.
Yes, a round of applause for women. And just before you go, we have something special for you. So, courtesy Knorr, we'll be going on with this gift items. So, ladies, thank you for coming. Just something small to say. No, it's not small, it's big. Because I'm using 2 hands to carry it. This gift item, I'm putting that for you. We're breaking the norm. Thank you, ladies, for coming. I had a great time. I hope you did, and I hope you enjoyed what we had for you. And thank you so much for watching. It's been Why Women Roundtable Conversations, powered by Knorr. And of course, this month we're choosing to break the norm. We're challenging the norm. We're choosing to challenge, and so should you. I'm Tomike Adeoye. I've been your host. I'll see you some other time.
Bye. Thank you.
I've been looking at you from across the way, and I think about you almost every day. Now I think that I must have a crush on you. I hope that you feel it too. There are dozens waiting for, so take my hand. You and me in la la land.
It's the natural ingredients and rich flavor of Knorr that brings people together.